Hello, I'm Dave Feinleib, and this is Beyond the Shelf. This show is an open exploration of the people and process behind e-commerce. Through conversations with innovators in the space, we learn the stories of these leaders and their strategies for e-commerce success. You can find out more about how we're helping leading brands and retailers like PepsiCo and Instacart build retail media and product detail page content more than 80% faster than their industry peers at itsrapid.ai. My guest on today's show is Andrea Leigh, founder and CEO of Allume Group. Prior to Allume Group, Andrea was vice president of strategy at IdeoClick, and before that was with Amazon for 9 years as a category leader and general manager of Hardlines, a senior manager of Amazon Fresh, and product manager for media categories. Andrea is a co-host of the Fresh 4 with the CPG Guys and a founding member of the Digital Shelf Institute. We discuss Andrea's work at Amazon, her experience running IdeoClick, and Allume Group's latest quarterly e-commerce report. Please enjoy my conversation with Andrea Leigh. Andrea, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, David.
Would you take us back? How did you get your start in the space?
Well, I would say that I probably got my start when I secured my job at Amazon. And I secured my job at Amazon because they were interested in people that they were hiring a lot of MBAs, and they were interested in people who had background working in, like, for some of the media companies. And at that time, Disney was very interesting to them. I had done an MBA internship at Disney through my program, and I got that internship because I got a last-minute interview that conflicted with some last-minute studying I needed to do for an accounting class. I chose interview prep over studying. I failed the class, but I got the internship.
You got the job. So that worked out. I don't know what the lesson is there, but I think it says sometimes you just got to let the stars align.
You got to do something. But yeah, I would say I got my start really kind of getting that first foot in the door there, and everything that followed has been a really exciting ride.
I'm sure people would love to know, what was it like those early days at Amazon? It was smaller then, I imagine, but and fast paced. Would you share some of your experience there?
Yeah, I mean, I started there in 2005 and worked there until 2015, so 10 years. And when I started, the entire North American retail commerce team sat on one floor, and we shared 2 printers.
Wow.
And it was about 150 people vendor managers. They used to call them buyers back then, but vendor managers and in-stock managers and merchandisers and things. So it was a really different company. You knew everyone on that team. I mean, you certainly didn't know everyone at the company. I was employee 4012, I think. And we had a lot of fulfillment center associates and people on the supply chain side and technology and everything. But on the commerce side, you knew everyone. And by the time I left in 2015, I was leading hardlines, softlines and consumables for Amazon Canada, and just the Canada team was 150 people. And
incredible.
Yeah, so it was just it was a different company, and it was exciting to be able to have an idea and literally put it in place the next day. I remember thinking that was the coolest thing.
That is one of the coolest things. One of the things I love about building software myself and building companies is you can envision it and you can make it go live. So it's incredible. You had some fairly substantial teams that you built and led there. How do you think about recruiting and hiring and leading these teams, and obviously doing so quite quickly?
If you want to think about what makes Amazon really successful in hiring smart people, and I if you assume they are successful in doing that, and I think that they are, I think it really comes down to a number of things, but they have a really rigorous interview process and selection criteria. And they implement a program called the Bar Raiser, which I think has been, people have talked about that on other articles and books and podcasts and things. But I was a part of that Bar Raiser program. At the time, there were about 100 folks within the company that were specially trained interviewers. And you had to have a bar raiser on every single interview loop in the company. So the bar raisers sat in on interviews for all kinds of functional areas. Like I did interviews for data scientists and for vendor managers and for technologists and all kinds of different functions. And I think that consistency and across the interviewing process was really critical for their success. And the bar raiser's job isn't to give the hardest interview or to make the hiring decision. That's actually not their job at all. Their job's to facilitate the debrief and ensure that like everyone that talked to the person gets a chance to voice what they were excited about the candidate. And then to ask some really pointed questions like, is this someone that you would you stake your success on this person? What's their superpower? Like really getting people to think through more than just if you felt an affinity with someone, like, do you actually think that they're a good fit for the company?
I love it. Great set of insights. You also manage a number of different areas. I mean, media, hard lines, product. This is an amazing set of experiences. Any learnings, insights you can share from those different roles?
Well, it was really fun to switch categories often. And that, I mean, people who have worked there probably have had similar experiences where you move around quite a bit.
Yeah.
I think in terms of like each company, each vendor or brand that we worked with was so different in so many ways. The category dynamics were so different. Their starting story was so different. We worked with brands as small as this little company that used to make, I don't know if they're even still around, but they made this little toy for top babies called Sophie the Giraffe. It was like a very popular like teething toy at the time. And this woman was literally making it in her garage and it became the best-selling toy on Amazon. So working with everyone from like, and we were like on the phone with her every week trying to help her secure like more production and like how could she grow her business because we wanted more product. So you had everyone from companies and brands like that were just getting going and it was so exciting, all the way to, big multinational corporations who are trying to organize for e-commerce and that they were just facing entirely different challenges and opportunities. And I really enjoyed the process of learning about those and doing what we could to help them.
Speaking of Amazon, we're fresh off Prime Day, maybe a little bit early to know what the results are, but you work with a lot of amazing leaders in the space. Anything you were particularly focused on with some of your clients and partners heading into Prime Day this year?
Well, I think the biggest thing to know about Prime Day is that it's not what it used to be, in that it used to be kind of like a tentpole event that would draw a lot of traffic and sales for, big ticket electronics items or, in more discretionary categories. And I think it's really evolved as Amazon has evolved to be more of like an everyday items kind of a retailer. And the lion's share of the deals and sales, as far as I can tell from some of the reports that have been coming out this year, and maybe even last year too, have been just household consumables. And the idea being the shopper goes to Amazon, to buy another Ring camera or, an Apple Watch or whatever deal they're looking for. And then while they're there, they pick up Glad trash bags and paper towels and some more face cream and, all the other things that
all the other things we need.
And it ties really nicely with something that Andy Jassy said in the last earnings call about there being Amazon really focusing on household, they call it everyday items as opposed to household consumables because they're not all consumable items. It could be like charger cords and, all kinds of things that you kind of use every day. And he talked about how they have been really focused on increasing delivery speed for those types of items so that they can be considered for more occasions. And I thought that was an interesting way to look at like customer acquisition and lifetime value in terms of this data set of like what is an everyday item.
And you can broaden it out, it sounds like, and have it be a much wider set of items than it could be.
Yeah.
At least something that you have to have delivered than it could be in the past. So super, super interesting. Now, after Amazon, you had an amazing run there. You went on to IdeoClick, where you were VP of strategy. Tell us a little about that. What was it like going from the big company to presumably the startup?
Yeah. Well, I took a couple of years in between. I ran a consultancy actually with Melissa Burdick of Packview. We were very briefly Leigh and Burdick, e-commerce consultancy. And so did that for a couple of years. And then my ex-husband was running a company called IdeoClick. It was an e-commerce agency. I joined him there, and we ran that company we grew it from about, I think we were around 15 or 20 employees when I started, to 160 at the peak of the pandemic, and putting a lot of those skills back to work around hiring and growing teams really quickly and coaching and developing, which was super enjoyable. And we worked with a lot of manufacturers, and it was a full service managed services agency. We ran their businesses on Amazon, did all of the retail media, cost recovery, catalog operations. It was a really exciting run.
You have so many great experiences, Amazon, IdeoClick, and now you've gone on to start Allume Group, which is, I'm a serial entrepreneur myself, so I kind of enjoy these entrepreneurial experiences and growing these businesses. Talk to us about Allume. What are you doing? What was the inspiration to start the new company?
Yeah. So I would say like my last year at IdeoClick, I had mentioned that we were hiring and training and staffing so quickly. We had to get folks that were client facing up and running in like 30 days. Like in a small company, you can't have people on the books that aren't delivering. And so we had to figure out how do we, and we couldn't afford to hire all of the expensive digital talent here in Seattle. So we had to hire people that were good with clients and then teach them e-commerce. And first we learned that it's very teachable. It's a very teachable, set of capabilities. So I built a curriculum with the team, and we ran that for our new hires. And then some of our clients started hearing about it, and they were like, well, can you come train our team? Can you teach us about e-commerce? My leadership team needs to know more about this. And so before I knew it, I was traveling all around the US delivering workshops for all kinds of global consumer packaged goods companies and consumer brands. And it started to take a lot of time, but it wasn't core to IdeoClick's offering. And so it just needed to be its own business. So I left there and started Allume Group 3 years ago. And we are an education as a service company. We focus on digital commerce and digital topics, digital shopper. We offer a series of courses online, as well as via like webinar or on-site with clients in more of a workshop, hands-on workshop format, to really help raise the digital acumen within organizations. And we get pretty hands-on with the team in terms of like analyzing ways of working and processes and internal capabilities. And we work with a large number of consumer brands, as well as media holding companies and agencies, or what we call brand enablers, to help folks that are working with consumer brands as well.
You seem like a natural teacher to me. What have you learned about working and doing these trainings and sharing the knowledge? What works well?
Yeah, well, the first thing I had to learn is that I had to learn how to be a teacher, because it's really different than being a strategist, or being kind of in more of a thought leader space where you're giving speeches or writing articles. Like teaching is a different skill. And teaching, it doesn't seem like it, probably if there are any teachers listening, they already knew this, but it's actually more listening than it is talking. So, and what we find especially in the workshop versions of our courses, is that the team, we're there in a facilitation role, right? Like we're guiding we're imparting some knowledge, we're sharing some best practices, we're sharing some industry trends, and some frameworks and ways to think about things. But the teams that we're working with are often learning just as much from one another. And you have to figure out how to create space, not just create space for that, but encourage that and like draw that out. And so I think that has been kind of one of my biggest learnings, is how to do that. Like, what are the right types of activities? What are the right types of questions to ask? What tactics? And learning about different learner types, because not everyone is a raise their hand and contribute kind of a learner. So you have to figure out, how do you create different means of contributing and collaborating in the discussion that aren't just working with one learner type. Like, how do you draw from all of the different learner types?
Rules for the road right here on that are applicable in so many areas of life. So it's a great insight. Tell me about some of the topics that you focus on at Allume. What are you sharing? What's most of interest to the clients that you're sharing these workshops and sessions with?
We teach on about 15 or 20 different topics, but I think the ones that are most popular right now, we're doing a lot on retail media. So really kind of taking a step back of like, what is retail media? How does it fit into the media ecosystem? Like, how should advertisers be thinking about this as a part of their toolkit? What are some of the trends in the industry? How is it evolving? What are some common like pain points for advertisers, some common opportunities? Where do we think it's headed? And then, doing some workshopping around some of those topics. And then we have also retail media curriculum that gets a little more hands-on. So how do you build a strategy? What are some of the best practices and ways of working in terms of execution and measurement and those types of things? And we run some share groups around that topic as well. So that's a really popular topic. Going into the fall, we're heading into retailer and supplier negotiation season. And so that's been coming up quite a bit. We typically get really heavy on Amazon annual vendor negotiations and mutual profitability workshops this time of year, which are a multi-part series, either a one-time or multi-part series where we're teaching the team giving them a framework to use to negotiate. How do you prepare? How do you prepare internally? How do you prepare with Amazon? What does the process look like? How do you really think about the other person's interests? We teach interest-based negotiation. So the idea being the more interest both parties can bring to the table, the more likely you're going to have a mutually successful outcome. So a lot about negotiations, and then backing up from that, like, what does it mean to be profitable on Amazon? How do they think about their P&L? How does all of that work? What are some of the ways to make items more profitable for brands and for the retailer? Those are pretty popular right now. And then we do a quarterly report called the AIR Report, Allume Insider Report, where we take kind of what we've been hearing from brands, seeing at conferences, reading, talking to different thought leaders in the space, and we kind of sum up into a theme for the quarter and then publish that as a report. And we also do that as a private workshop for brands where we spend some time talking about and facilitating discussion around, like, how are you addressing this trend? How can we apply this to you? What makes sense for your brand in this space?
So many relevant topics for brands to think about. Now, without giving away all the secrets, when it comes to negotiating with a retailer like Amazon, you've got interest-based. Any tips and tricks to share with our listeners, things they should keep in mind as they're headed into this season?
Yeah, we teach a framework called the FIRM framework. And you can find that on our YouTube channel and on our website. The FIRM. So F stands for find your data. That's about preparing and getting ready to negotiate both internally and also with Amazon. I stands for isolate your point of leverage. And so that's about doing some benchmarking and looking at the competitive set and asking questions and trying to figure out what is the unique value you're bringing to this relationship. And then R is relax and go slow. So create a timeline for yourself, for your team, but don't feel pressured to close. Although there are also times when it's time to close. So we talk about that. And then M is make asks of your own. And this is one brands often miss because, Amazon will start with, like, these are the terms we're going to negotiate this year. And I think it's also an opportunity for a brand to have a conversation with Amazon and think about what do they need to be successful. Or if Amazon has a big ask this year, let's just pretend they were to accept that, what would they need in return? Right. And so really thinking outside of just the commercial area, like not just sales, and what are other things you need from Amazon? Are there operational accommodations? Are there introductions? Are there integrations into other programs? Like, what are the other things you need?
So a lot of opportunity to bring some other elements to the discussion beyond maybe the pure numbers, which are, of course, super important, but there's a lot of other elements that you could give and take, I suppose, in these discussions. So that's great. I wanted to come back to one other area you mentioned, which is retail media. A ton of investment going into it. What are you seeing the best brands and the leaders do? There's lots of networks you can invest in now. There are many different types of investments you can make: search, creative, you can do brand. How do you think about advising them on those different places they might invest?
I think actually the most important key to success starts before you even spend a dollar. And that's about creating goals and thinking about what you're trying to accomplish. I think without doing that, literally all the dollars are wasted. So taking a minute and I think the goal setting is an important activity internally. So thinking about, in most organizations, at least in large ones, retail media doesn't always have a clear area of ownership. So it might sit with a few different teams. So there's a lot of points of view to bring together, because it is a form of media. It's also an extension of the commercial business. It also is so closely tied to what's happening on the supply chain side because it's real time. So, it's so close to the transaction that the product's got to be in stock. Everything has to be kind of retail ready. Everything has to be retail ready. So I think that idea of goal setting, both internally and then also between the brand and the retailer, and also with the partner, like that has to happen first. So, and every retail media platform is a little bit different. Every retailer has a little bit of a different shopper. I mean, so what you're trying to accomplish on Instacart might be really different than what you're trying to accomplish on Walmart.com or on Amazon. You might be protecting share on Amazon. You might be, trying to coordinate with an in-store promotion on Walmart. On Instacart, maybe you're going after a new shopper. And those are all different goals that have different strategies and different measurements associated with them and different tactics. So I think before you do anything, you really have to spend a lot of time on that goal setting piece.
And dialing into these individual retailer dynamics. It's a great set of insights. You've got lots of incredible clients you work with at Allume Group. You just released your latest quarterly report. Tell us what the headlines are. What's the news?
Yeah. So this quarter, we focused on trust. And the reason we chose trust for this quarter is because kind of with the explosion of artificial intelligence, I think trust is really top of mind for consumers. So it's, what do I trust? What can I trust? What is trustworthy and what is not? And I think this idea of like keeping promises as a brand and maintaining transparency at like every stage of the shopper journey is so important. And for brands and retailers, that really means choosing artificial intelligence initiatives that really make shoppers' lives easier. And at a minimum, you don't want to lose value, right? As you're implementing more AI into your backend and your customer-facing experiences. So from a trust perspective, there are kind of three big ways we have seen brands build more trust with shoppers. The first is that idea of adding value across the entire shopper journey. This is a crazy stat. Almost 40% of consumers prioritize trustworthiness over price when choosing a product. So it's a clear sales driver. So it's about adding value. There's some recent research out from Google that talks about how 73% of consumers are looking for ways to simplify decision-making when shopping online. So, if you can figure out ways to use artificial intelligence to enhance images and enhance product content or organize disorganized data, those are value adds for the shopper. The second way is to be really relevant to the shopper experience. So some research from McKinsey says that 75% of consumers say they want brands to demonstrate that they understand their needs. And you can really do that through personalization in your advertising, or if you're a retailer on your site. And AI is really useful in helping us do that. And then the last way to build trust is to be really inclusive of the shopper. And that is important in both like advertising and just being very inclusive in terms of promoting diversity, including representation across race, gender, body type, sexual orientation. But it's also being inclusive of their ideas. And you can do that through social listening, through reading your reviews and listening across social channels. And literally, that has only been made possible at scale most recently with AI. And we've sat through so many demos the last few weeks of companies that are trying to provide that value for brands to be able to do that.
It's great. So if I understand right, and if I'm hearing it right, AI is both a potential source of we need to think more thoughtfully about trust and trustworthiness, but also I think a great insight from what you're saying, which is the flip side of that is we could also potentially use AI to help us be smarter and be better informed as listeners, as an example, to dialed into what our shoppers are looking for. So,
absolutely.
Yeah, it's a great perspective. Well, you have such a wealth of experience, knowledge of the space. I can't say enough great things about all your insights, but I got to ask you predictions. We're looking ahead either to holiday in the next few months here or the next 12 months. What are you keeping an eye on?
The thing that I'm most interested, really interested in two things right now. I think that the shopping experience, this very search-based shopping experience that we are all trained in, is already changing so quickly and is going to continue to evolve with AI. So you don't even really see it, but search is changing on retailer sites and on Google, and like in very small increments, right? And we're not that far away from just being able to say, hey, can you please show me a black Gore-Tex jacket that will hit me at my knees that has a belt? Like, we're really close to that. And a lot of the generative AI apps already kind of do that, but it's not very shopping focused, right? Like, some of them will give you products, some of them won't. Some of them will just tell you about products, some of them will give you brands. Like, it's a mixed bag. But I think we're not far away from conversational commerce. And I'm pretty excited about that, both as a shopper and as someone in the industry, because I think it's going to really change how we think about meeting the shopper where they're at. And that could look a lot of different ways, but it could mean that we're maybe engaging with the shopper a little differently. Maybe it's not necessarily always on the retailer site. Maybe it's through third-party websites or apps. Maybe this is all happening on social. But I think this idea of conversational commerce is huge. So that's happening right now. So I'm excited about that. And then I'm also really excited about this idea of retail media and moving into the store. And we have seen some stores doing tests and things with cooler screens and screens in the store. I'm interested to see first that I don't love that. And I think it's, there's ways that can be executed really effectively, but it's just hugely expensive for the stores, and it's difficult, and the technology isn't integrated with the other retail media yet. And it's hard. What seems easier to me, and what I'm starting to see some stores do, is give me a reason to pull out my phone in the store, because I have a screen in my pocket. Everyone has a screen in their pocket. So give me a reason to tell you I'm here, to check in, provide some incentive, and then you can serve me ads and offers and do things to make my shopping experience easier. Let me look at, Home Depot is a great example. They'll tell you the aisle and the location of the product that you're looking for. You can do image-based search on Home Depot, because they were very early in learning that, you don't know what this thing is called. You just know what it looks like.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah. You're like, I got this thing, it broke.
But I have my phone and I have the thing, and so let me go find this, and I can. And if you show me where it is in the store, it's going to make my life that much easier. So yeah.
Yeah. So I'm really and this is hard because retailers aren't really technologists, with the exception of Amazon, which they don't have a huge in-store physical store footprint. But I feel like there's something here, and I'm just really excited when I see stores kind of creating some synergies in those experiences. And I feel like there's so much opportunity for personalization and for offers and all kinds of things just by getting me to pull my phone out in the store.
Such a great insight. Really a way to re-envision this combination of in-store and the device that I have my phone with me anyway. So how do we make use of it? So love it. Conversational commerce and bring in the shopping experience, this hybrid in-store and online together. These are great. We'll check back in with you in some time, have you back on the show and find out more. Well, Andrea, it's been so great talking with you today. If you're up for it, I've got a few quick wrap-up questions before we close things out.
I'm ready. Bring it on, David.
All right. The first question, and I know it's hard to choose only two, but which two people have influenced you the most in your professional career?
Well, my top one would be my dad. And the reason that I'm choosing my dad is that he has had his own small business since I was born and has now run it for as old as I am, which I'm not, I'm not going to tell you that, but a long time. And he has just been like so instrumental in, since I even when I was at Amazon, but since I left Amazon, in helping kind of guide me through my career, being a really useful and helpful sounding board on some of the challenges of being a small business owner, and just like giving me a lot of shortcuts and in ways to think about things that have all been really homegrown. And he's not in a totally dissimilar business. He's not on the digital side, but he also works with he works in food with consumer brands, primarily with food banks. And he's like a supply chain architect and a fulfillment center architect. And he's helping food banks figure out how to feed more people. So how do you get the food from the CPGs into the food bank, and how do you get it in and processed and out faster? So he's just been a huge inspiration for me in so many ways in what he does for work, but also in just, all of the everyday advice that he's given me in starting my own business.
100%. It's so great to have a sounding board like that when you're building something. It's great. Great story.
Yeah, I can't tell you how many walks around the lake I've done while I've been talking on the phone with him, just hammering out like my latest proposal or business idea. And he's always a great sounding board.
Any other sources of inspiration or mentors or other folks? That's a great one that you just shared.
I think I'm going to stick with my dad. I mean, there's so many other folks that have been great in helping me with my career, but that's probably the number one.
Perfect. Now, when you do get some time outside of work and family, hobbies, how do you like to spend your time?
I would say probably two. I mean, I have lots of hobbies, but probably two main ones. I sing and play the piano. I'm a classically trained pianist and have been playing since I was 4.
Incredible.
Yes. So music has been really important to me. I play all kinds of music, everything from classical music to show tunes to pop music to, jazz, like all kinds of music. So I love to play. I also really love home improvement. And I live in a house that's about 100 years old, and I really enjoy fixing things and tinkering with things and mending things that are repairing things. I consider every like little repair job a challenge, and I kind of chip away at it.
So great. So 2 quick follow-ups. One is, if you have one, a favorite song or one that you're currently working on, and what's your latest home improvement project?
Oh gosh. Okay. So, I mean, right now I'm playing, well, I've recently just gone through like the whole La La Land soundtrack. If you have not seen that movie, it has some really beautiful piano pieces in it. They're very challenging, but really a lot of fun. And they have some great vocal tracks to them as well. So that's what I'm playing right now. And then latest home improvement project was had to get a new doorbell. So there was like a big hole where the old one was. And, it's an old house with beautiful molding outside the door. And so I like repaired the whole area sealed it all up, like, mimicked the molding, wood filler, sanded, caulked the whole thing and repainted. And it looks like it was never there.
That's what you want. That's so great when you do all the work and then you see the results and you're like, oh yeah, it was always meant to be that way. So that is awesome. Well, such a pleasure talking with you today. If our listeners want to find you, reach you online, what's the best way for them to find you on the internet?
Yeah, they can find me on LinkedIn, message me there, Andrea K. Leigh, Leigh, or visit our website, allumegroup.com.
allumegroup.com. You're also with the Digital Shelf, the Fresh Force, so they can find you in so many great venues. But Allume Group and Andrea, again, such a pleasure. Thanks for taking the time to talk with me today.
Thanks so much for having me, David.
I hope you enjoyed today's show. Beyond the Shelf is brought to you by It's Rapid. It's Rapid is the platform Pepsi, Sierra Nevada, Revlon, and hundreds of other leading brands and retailers use to build personalized content at scale. Whether that's images, videos, or product descriptions for their product detail pages, shoppable videos or banners for their digital ad campaigns, or sell sheets for sales enablement, brands that use It's Rapid are able to produce high-quality, on-brand content on average more than 80% faster than category competitors. To find out more, please visit itsrapid.ai. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on Beyond the Shelf.